Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Daw, Adult Services Librarian at the Halton Hills Public Library, and I'm back with our final presentation from the Dewey Divas. Today, Lahring Tribe joins us to discuss her picks for your book club or summer reading list. Leave us a comment below telling us which of her titles you're eager to read.
Hi, I'm Lahring Tribe from Penguin Random House, and I'd like to thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm truly delighted to be able to share some of my favorite books for the spring and summer with you, even if it's not possible to do it in person. And as you listen, you may be thinking, I've never heard of most of these authors, and that's absolutely true. Over half of my books are by writers being published by the first time. There's something exciting about being among the first to discover an author who may go on to be a favorite when the rest of the world takes notice. One other thing, presumably because I have been staying home for what seems like forever, the majority of my selections are set in faraway places or times or both. If you too are feeling as if you'd like to get out more, please join me in hopping on the metaphorical magic carpet ride that these books can provide. Starting with Conjure Women by Afia Atakora. As I was reading, I was reminded of two other debut novels. Ya Jessie's Homegoing, for its sense of intergenerational connectedness, and Ta-Nehisi Coates' Water Dancer, for its depiction of the experience of slavery. And I was reminded of both of them for the great quality of this book's writing. Atakora tells the entangled stories of the residents of a southern plantation in the years adjacent to the Civil War, focusing on three women, Miss May Bell, midwife, healer, and hoodoo practitioner, her daughter Rue, who possesses some of her mother's skills, but perhaps not her confidence or wisdom, and Verena, daughter of the plantation owner. This is not an easy book to read, because the author's research drew more upon narratives of former slaves than Gone with the Wind. Be prepared for casual but not gratuitous brutality. Because the main characters are women, expect their bodies to do what women's bodies do. And the narrative is not linear. It moves back and forth between slavery time and freedom time, which can be disconcerting until you fall into the book's rhythm. This book that rewards patience is perfect to read and reflect upon all by yourself, but there is so much to talk about, starting with the legacy of slavery, the complexities of race, and what people who have almost nothing of their own will do to protect the little they have. If you like authentic historical fiction but are suffering from World War II fatigue, perhaps give this one a try. And then, If I Had Your Face, if your taste leans more to contemporary commercial fiction with substance, you might consider Frances Chaw's If I Had Your Face. Don't be deceived into thinking that this novel about 5 young women in a South Korean apartment building might be Friends in Seoul or a Crazy Rich Asians clone. This debut will transport you to an intensely competitive society where the birth rate is low and the suicide rate is high, and there is an obsession with boy bands and female beauty, which leads 1/3 of South Korean women in their 20s to undergo plastic surgery. While here, we get to know Curie, who works in an exclusive room salon pleasing rich men, Soo-jin, who aspires to be just like her, Era, a nonverbal K-pop obsessed hairdresser, Miho, an artist dependent on her rich boyfriend, and Wana, pregnant and wondering how she and her husband will be able to afford their baby. The phrase "lives of quiet desperation" kept running through my mind as I was reading, and I found myself alternating between incredulity at their acceptance of the status quo, especially the willingness to undergo incapacitating and financially ruinous surgery to be beautiful, and creeping uneasiness at how many of the same expectations apply to women everywhere. Readers who devoured The Farm will find this similarly thought and discussion provoking. And Precious You? Maybe you prefer your fiction to be contemporary but fast-paced and adrenaline-laced. If so, you might try another debut, Helen Monks Tahar's Precious You. It certainly opens with a bang, or perhaps a near bang, as the narrator, whose thought processes can best be described as worrisome, is pursuing a cyclist in her car with the intention of running over said cyclist. How did this happen? Well, here's a hint. The thriller has migrated from suburbia to the workplace, and unsettling neighbors have morphed into upsetting colleagues. Catherine is a 41-year-old magazine editor who has devoted everything to her career. Lily is a stylish millennial intern and the niece of the magazine's new owner, who is embarking on a revamping of the magazine that is Catherine's very life. Catherine feels unappreciated and threatened and probably a little outdated. Lily despises everything Catherine stands for. The stakes escalate rapidly. The word snowflake is bandied about repeatedly. Read this one for the guilty pleasure of watching not very nice people behaving increasingly badly. But you may want to talk about the acute observations about intergenerational discord in the workplace and how women become invisible and vulnerable when they reach a certain age. And if this is relevant to you, you may find yourself reflecting on what you are not missing about work. Last couple standing. Marriage also has its perils, even if you're not in a domestic thriller. How can you not be enticed by the opening words of Last Couple Standing? Everything that went so thoroughly wrong that spring can be traced back to the divorces. Capital T, capital D for emphasis, the divorces. They were the core four couples who met in university, married, and stayed friends, until one couple divorced, followed by another and a third in rapid succession. Jessica and Mitch, the last couple standing, would prefer to stay married, not because they are wildly, passionately in love anymore, but, well, they rather like each other and they're their kids to consider, and the alternative seems like a lot of bother. In a series of charmingly awkward conversations, they conclude that the reason their friends' marriages fell apart was because the other couples wanted to have sex with other people. So why not relax their own marriage to allow for experimentation? With strict rules, of course, no repeats, no emotional entanglements, and head the want to have sex issue off at the pass. What could possibly go wrong? Right. What unfolds leads comedic rather than erotic, so those anticipating a chorus of creaking bed springs will be either disappointed or relieved. The outcome is perhaps somewhat predictable rather than sensational, but it does manage to explore contemporary relationships without making you feel as if you've wandered into a psych textbook or a self-help tome. It has something of a similar sensibility to last year's Fleischman is in Trouble. And if your preference tends to the whoever thought this was a good idea subgenre, try any of the other books on the slide, each a good choice for readers of book clubs who prefer relatable characters, lightness of plot, and everyday dilemmas to literary heft. And first actress. And now it's time to hop on that magic carpet and meet Sarah Bernhardt. Most of us know her name and that she was an actress. Few of us know much more about her. This immersive novel addresses that knowledge gap. Bernhardt was born in Paris in the mid-19th century to a courtesan who wanted her daughter to follow in her footsteps. But she discovered the stage at the convent school she attended and pursued acting with determined ferocity. Bernhardt was the first actress to adopt a natural delivery instead of oozing melodrama from every pore, and she appeared in some of the first motion pictures. But she is probably best known for her liaisons with famous men like Alexandre Dumas, Victor Hugo, and the Prince of Wales, even Oscar Wilde. She never married, she raised her son alone, she slept in a coffin and collected wild animals. She was definitely a woman ahead of her time and generally recognized as the first international celebrity. Just think what she could have done with reality TV and social media. C.W. Gortner vividly captures this difficult woman who was utterly unapologetic about her desire for fame and the city and times in which she lived. Daughters of Erietown. Erietown is about as far from Belle Epoque, Paris as it is possible to go. It's a fictitious town in Ohio, but it could be any small community. As I was reading, I kept thinking, these are the people I went to high school with. And if you grew up in a non-urban setting between the 1950s and 1980s, I bet you will recognize some of the characters too. These are people who don't often make it into fiction. Working class folks with ordinary lives and everyday problems. This small town saga offers relatable rather than escapist reading, especially if this is your background. Ellie and Brick fall in love in high school and plan to ride the 50s wave to a better life, but Ellie gets pregnant and their prospects change. Over the years, Ellie deals with joys, heartbreaks, and disappointments, always striving to give her daughter the opportunity to pursue the life she didn't get to have. This book explores what people, especially women, want their lives to be, tempered by what is expected of them and what is actually available to them. It also looks at what happens when dreams meet reality and the challenge of maintaining a family without losing yourself. It is serious but not dreary and often quite funny, with the supremely awkward scene in which Ellie presents her daughter with a copy of Our Bodies, Ourselves in a restaurant, standing out. The Margot Affair. My next book has superficial similarities to First Actress. We're back in Paris, and the main character is the secret daughter of an actress and a politician. Margot's life is comfortable but a bit lonely. She studies a lot, her self-absorbed mother treats her more as a peer than a daughter, and her father visits intermittently but has obligations to his career and the wife and sons who comprise his official family. At 17, Margot impulsively reveals her situation to a journalist, resulting in an outcome she did not anticipate. This debut, inspired by the post-demise revelation that Francois Mitterrand had a second family, could lead to discussions about the relationships between women, especially mothers and daughters, or whether you should keep secrets or tell the truth, or you could examine Margot's character development and motivations. But more than anything else, this is a ticket to Paris in book form. Your senses will be delighted. You will be surrounded by Parisian sights, the fragrance of perfume, the temptations of chocolate and croissants and pastries. This book will not help you with the Quarantine 15, but if you are so motivated, there are recipes on the author's website. Then Mexican Gothic. If you've had enough of Paris, how about Mexico in the 1950s? The cover of this book is certainly arresting, even if it doesn't exactly scream Gothic novel tipping into horror, which is what this book is. Willful party girl Noemi is sent to an isolated outpost to investigate after her father receives a hysterical letter from her recently married cousin claiming that she is being poisoned. All the Gothic boxes are ticked. Decaying mansion? Yep. Creepy family? Uh-huh. Silent servants? Yes. Adjacent graveyard? Mm-hmm. A dash of romance? Sure thing. And plenty of references to Wuthering Heights and Rebecca. The pace is leisurely at first as Noemi spars with her cousin's in-laws, but the sense that something is not right grows like the mold on the walls, and the last third of the book just explodes. One reader described this as the Manson family meets the Addams family, and it's only fair to warn you that you may never look at mushrooms in the same way again. Murder in Chianti. If you're going to get dragged into a murder investigation, it might as well be in Tuscany. After his wife dies, former New York homicide cop Nico Doyle tries to rebuild his life in her small Italian hometown, helping out his in-laws in their restaurant. And then a man is murdered near his house, and the local authorities realize that Nico has more experience with serious crime than they do. This falls halfway between police procedural and cozy. The Carbonieri are very much in evidence, but there are also plenty of local characters, a cute dog named One Wag, and much food and wine to be consumed amidst the gorgeous scenery. And I'm including this one just kind of as a tip to the annual Wines and Spines event. If we can't do it in person, maybe get a copy of this book and raise a glass. And then one to watch. What do you do if you're one of Hillary Clinton's writers and that future doesn't turn out as you were expecting? Well, if you're Kate Stayman London, you write a debut novel, and one to watch is a pretty good one. The main character is Bee, and she wears a size 20. But this has not prevented her from becoming a very successful fashion blogger. It may have prevented her best friend Ray, for whom she pines and provides support in equal measure, from her considering her as a romantic possibility. He abruptly vanishes after a night of passion in which he conveniently forgets that he's engaged to someone else. Bereft, Bee distracts herself by watching Maine Squeeze, think The Bachelorette, before posting a scathing blog about whether the lack of body diversity on such shows means larger women do not deserve to find love. Her blog goes viral, and before she knows it, Bee is picked as the next Squeeze, not because the network is suddenly woke, but to rescue their failing ratings. Soon she is meeting the contenders, Sweet Sam, Homespun Jefferson, Reserved Asher, and 5 guys named Ben, and meeting their families and zipping off to glamorous faraway spots. And then Ray makes a dramatic reappearance. Pick this up if you've ever wondered what really happens behind the scenes on shows like The Bachelorette. Spoiler alert, some of it is scripted, but also for its keen commentary on body image and fat shaming that never takes away from the entertainment factor. Don't be put off by the 400-page count on this book. You will fly through it. Hamnet and Judith. Kind of at the other end of the literary spectrum, Maggie O'Farrell's latest novel opens with a historical note. In the 1580s, a couple living in Henley Street, Stratford, had 3 children, Susanna, then Hamnet and Judith, who were twins. The boy, Hamnet, died in 1596, aged 11. 4 years or so later, the father wrote a play called Hamlet. From this, you might be expecting a novel delving into the origins of one of the greatest plays in the language. And that's what this is, richly imagined from the handful of facts that exist about the time and people. But the book really is not about the writing of the play. In fact, it's not really about Shakespeare at all, who is never named in the novel and only minimally referenced once he leaves Stratford for London. It is about the children, but it's mostly about their mother, Agnes, and domestic life in the town of Stratford in Elizabethan times, and of course, deep gut-wrenching grief that follows the death of a child. It also has a sort of a subplot that follows the progress of the plague from the Middle East to England, oddly topical in these times. Pick this book up for its outstanding prose and for its capacity to envelop you in the sights, smells, and grim realities of another time. Playing nice. Jumping to the present for another take on parenthood. Imagine this. You're a stay-at-home parent, in this case, stay-at-home dad, and you're at home parenting your somewhat obstreperous toddler when a knock comes at the door. On the step, there's a posh couple who explain that their son and your son were switched at birth. Oh, they're willing to be reasonable. There's no need to upset the children by switching them back. But perhaps co-parenting in some kind of a blended family would work. Until, of course, it doesn't, because toddlers aren't the only ones who have difficulty sharing and playing nice. There's a lot to talk about in this stylish thriller. You can have the cerebral nature versus nurture debate, and whether parenting is driven by DNA or love, or you can cut right to the more visceral, how far would you go to protect your child? Leonard and Hungry Paul. If anyone needs lessons on playing nice, Leonard and Hungry Paul could teach them. This book was my delightful discovery for the season. I started with no expectations and was immediately enchanted. You know all about Uplit. This is Uplit on steroids. By about page 7, I was smiling and wanting to read passage after passage out loud to someone. So what is this book about? Honestly, it's not about much of anything. The title characters are two guys in their 30s. They live at home. They have inconsequential jobs. One writes encyclopedias for kids. The other's a part-time postman. They get together for conversation and board games. Their lives sound small, but here's the thing. They are completely happy and decent and comfortable in their own skins and utterly unconcerned about not being cool. The writing is subtly witty rather than laugh out loud funny, and there's plenty of self-deprecating banter between the boys. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book. I'm not claiming that this gentle, charming novel is a book for the ages, but it is certainly a perfect book for the times in which we find ourselves. And shame on me. My one nonfiction title, and again, rather topical. This brief but concentrated reflection on race originated with the author's attempt to answer a question she was asked as the only non-white child in a grade 3 class in suburban Toronto. Tessa, what are you? Born in Guyana with ancestry that includes Chinese, Scottish, African, English, Amerindian, French, Indian, and Portuguese ancestors, the question does not have a simple answer. McWatt blends her own experiences, family stories, and science in this anatomy that literally goes through the parts of the body: nose, lips, hair, skin, eyes, derriere, bones, and blood that are used in defining race in search of that answer. While asserting that race is not identity, it may even have no basis in science, she shows how it has been used throughout history to categorize and control. With its extensive bibliography, this is perfect for anyone whose heritage is similarly complex, and even more perfect if it is not, at a time when we all have a stake in intricacies of race and racism. That's my list. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you find something to entertain you going forward. And just very, very quickly, one more slide. Some things to look forward to. Kevin Kwan has a new book coming at the end of June, and David Mitchell early in July. And just across the bottom slide, these are books that I'll be looking forward to and talking about this fall. So just a sneak peek there. And again, thank you so much.
And there you have it, a third and final list of titles to keep you reading all summer long. Comment down below with your top pick from Lahring's list, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our staff picks. We've also launched a new online summer reading program for this summer. The program is for readers of all ages, so visit our website to learn how to participate. On that note, happy reading from everyone at Halton Hills Public Library.